I call to order this joint meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education and the Honorable Mayor Kathy Murillo and fellow City Council members. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Matsuoka, can we please have roll call?
Board member. Now I know what my staff is. Board member Sims Moten.
Here.
Board member Capps.
Here.
Board member Paredes Ulloa.
Here.
Board member Parker.
Here.
Board member Reed.
Here.
Council member Sneddon.
Here.
Council member Hart.
Here.
Council member Dominguez. Council member Friedman.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rouse.
Here.
Mayor Murillo.
Here.
Spanish interpretation of today's meeting is available to the public. Please indicate if you wish to receive interpretation, so let us know. And also headsets for the hearing impaired are available. Please indicate if you need a headset.
Buenas tardes a todos. Esta noche disponemos de servicio de interpretación al español para aquellos que lo deseen. Si desean escuchar la reunión en español, por favor, háganoslo saber. Gracias.
So we're ready for public comments. Ms. Sims Moten.
Yes, Phoebe Longstreet, to be followed by Michael Chiaros.
Good afternoon. My name's Phoebe Longstreet, and I'm here today representing the Neighborhood Advisory Council of the City of Santa Barbara. We want to introduce the NAC to the school board because we would like to partner with the schools to strengthen our neighborhoods. The purpose of the NAC is to provide guidance and operation assistance to the City Council, Parks and Recreation Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Department in the provision of neighborhood services for the residents of the City of Santa Barbara. As such, it will provide a vehicle for community input and assist in the mobilization of area resources to help meet neighborhood-related interests and needs. We are a 13-member council. We have 8 members from the West Side, Lower West Side, West Downtown, East Side, Lower East Side, and Laguna neighborhoods. 5 members are at large, and up to 3 of our members can be youth 16 years or older. Our goals are neighborhood beautification and pride, safety and security, and participation and involvement. In 2018, we're focusing on such topics as illegal dumping, public works projects in the neighborhood, railroad right-of-way issues, graffiti, neighborhood improvement task force updates, and the schools. Because actually the schools are community centers, and so we would like to partner with you to make our neighborhoods wonderful places for all of our residents. Thank you.
Chiacos, sorry.
Hello, my name is Michael Chiacos, representing the Community Environmental Council. And for those that don't know us, we're a nonprofit that for 47 years here in Santa Barbara have been leading environmental solutions. And I'm here to talk about solar at the district. I really want to commend you for the excellent steps you're going forward with the new policy to put solar on all new buildings. Those are great steps forward. And in fact, they're ahead of the state goals for all commercial buildings to be zero net energy by 2030. So congratulations. And while this new construction is much greener, the larger issue really is how to retrofit the existing buildings, because that's where most of the load in our community is, right? And you see everywhere you drive in California, schools are solarizing. In fact, Santa Maria High School District just a few months ago turned the switch on for solar at 4 sites, and they are now saving $140,000 per year with no cost at all. It's just through a power purchase agreement. This is going to be $7 million of savings over the 25 years. Oxnard Unified went solar 8 years ago. I've talked with Mary, who is their dedicated energy specialist, and they're saving $430,000 a year on electricity, natural gas, and water savings. This seems like an excellent ROI on her position and really shows environmental leadership there. And so my question is, if Santa Maria and Oxnard can do this, why haven't we done this here in Santa Barbara yet? And similarly for the city of Santa Barbara, why haven't we done more solar projects? I know that staff has been focused on energy efficiency and the airport solar has taken a long time, but the last real project done was 8 years ago, and solar is half the price now as it was then. One option that I would really encourage both public agencies to look into is called SPUR. And this is a JPA of 250 member schools. These are all schools helping other schools. They have an aggregating purchasing power, and they've pre-negotiated power purchase agreements and contracts, and they've helped 17 school districts install over 50 megawatts of solar. They say it only takes 20 to 30 hours of staff time for a school district to go from a site walk to board approval, which is spread out through facilities, business, and legal staff. And I know this sounds really hard to believe, but even if it takes double that, that's a pretty excellent ROI, right? So the district, I feel, could really could benefit from hiring an energy coordinator.
30 seconds.
And the city, if they hired a helper for their energy analysts, we could get a lot more done here. So if Oxnard and Santa Maria can go solar, they're seeing great savings, why can't Santa Barbara, the birthplace of the environmental movement? Thank you.
Thank you. And I know these three want to come up, so I have Nathaniel, Milo, and Ellie.
It's on? Okay. Hi, my name's Nathaniel Gatacho. I'm the vice chair of the Santa Barbara Youth Council. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
I'm Ellie Chenoweth. I'm the secretary of the executive committee on the Santa Barbara Youth Council.
I'm Milo Hensley. I'm the chair of the newly formed Gun Safety Ad Hoc Committee on the Santa Barbara Youth Council.
So yeah, that's what we came here to talk to you guys about today, was that the Youth Council, given the prevalence of this issue in our communities and in the nation as a whole, we've created a ad hoc subcommittee for gun safety. We've partnered with the Coalition Against Gun Violence because we feel that there's a lot that needs to be addressed in the city and our community. We hope to be working with you in the future to create solutions to gun safety issues in our community, and we also want to let you know that we have an event coming up on April 28th. We're calling it the Teen Leadership Conference. We'll be talking about a multitude of teen leadership and teen youth-oriented issues, but we will be talking about gun safety and gun violence. So thank you.
Thank you. There to be followed by Jacqueline Inda.
Mayor, Council, School Board members, we will be passing out a list of different requests and recommendations from different entities from the California Department of Education through the Department of Homeland Security that identify policies that could be changed within the schools and within the community, within councils, and also with law enforcement. It takes a village. So this is really the message, that if we all work together along with our youth council and start to really address youth violence along with the gun safety policies that need to be in place in order to lower that, we can all make a difference to prevent tragedies in our schools and in our community. So we'll go ahead and pass these out, and we'll be working with our youth council. We hope that representatives of our school board along with our representatives of council will join that effort as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. So at this time in the meeting, we sort of provide our statement of purpose for why we have come together. And first of all, I would like to welcome the Honorable Mayor Kathy Murillo, and of course the fellow City Council members who are with us here today to join us in our district boardroom. The Board of Education and the City Council have been meeting since the year 2000 for three purposes: to improve communication between the agencies, to discuss programs and services to better serve the Santa Barbara community, and to highlight opportunities that the school district and city can work together. The Board of Education recognizes the importance of building a strong working relationship with the city, as the majority of our students live in the city of Santa Barbara. This annual joint meeting provides us with the opportunity to discuss issues of mutual interest. We appreciate the collaborative efforts between the city and our district, especially with the challenges of the Thomas Fire and the debris flow disaster. We experienced many agencies coming together to work and serve and to support each other and to work above and beyond the call of duty in support of our community. Providing a safe city and providing safe schools are paramount in our interests, and we look forward to continuing to work together and to ensure the best for all of our students and families in our community. So I'm now going to hand over the microphone to you to share about your purpose.
Thank you, President Dr. Reed. The energy is so nice here today. I'm so proud to be with you, so proud of our youth council as well. Thank you for taking a leadership role on preventing gun violence. We are here to foster cooperation between our agencies. You work with the children and the families, tell us what you need, and we can do the same from our end. We need to identify areas and programs where we can work together to support our children and our families. And not only are we concerned about the residents of the city of Santa Barbara, but our employees are also proud to have gone through Santa Barbara schools. We gave out awards recently to employees who had worked for 25 and 30 years, and in their proclamations were they were so proud to be graduates of Santa Barbara High School. So just to let you know, people have so much pride in attending your schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we will move on to our agenda reports. Number 6, the update on the Armory acquisition and Peabody Stadium construction. And we have presenters Carrie Matsuoka, Superintendent of the Santa Barbara Unified School District, and David Hetjunk, Director of Facilities and Operations for the district.
Council members and school board members, so this is going to be an update on the very large Armory project. You know the history much better than I do. I'm a relative newcomer, 2 years. This Armory has been part of the community for about 90 years. But actually, I have learned it was a WPA project from the 1920s. I have toured the facility, some of our staff have, and while an impressive building, it's gotten pretty old. And so the opportunity to purchase the Armory was really created by Doss Williams, and I know it's been a long project in waiting, and today we give you an important update. And I'll even say this, the slides that we presented in the report and the narrative was based on written correspondence between the district and the Department of General Services, and you'll see some, I mean, that is the language that we reflected from communication. But I wanted to share that 4 of us went up to Sacramento on Tuesday and had the opportunity to meet in Assemblymember Monique Lamone's office and brokered a really important meeting. So we're actually pleased to share some progress from that meeting. And that's going to be coming as a verbal report because we just got off the plane about, I don't know, 36 hours ago. Okay? So the legislation was sponsored by Doss Williams, who was our local assembly member in May 2016, and it authorized either of our agencies with the first rights to purchase the Armory. And I understand that, I guess, the first rights was sort of handed towards the school district. And so Santa Barbara Unified has been in conversation with the state now for, gosh, 2+ years. So when you try to purchase land from the state of California, you deal with the Department of General Services. And so we have been in conversation, negotiation, so to speak, for over 2 years. And the appraisal process by both agencies was completed for us probably about 9 months ago, and DGS completed theirs. But we couldn't get an answer from them about a sale price until just recently, January 2018. Now, mind you, the legislation said we were supposed to complete this by June of 2017. They just waited, and so now they're anxious to close the deal. But now that we know each other's appraisals, we have concerns, and these are outlined now in the next slides. It was stated very clearly in their correspondence, the written correspondence. They said DGS will not negotiate the price, and that was stated in the Assembly bill, that there is no negotiation. However, it is subject to fair market value in appraisals. Now, that's a really important point. It is subject to the fair market value in appraisals. So the district's initial appraisal is in a similar range, but what we've identified is the issues in the building and in the general property. So what are those issues? Well, one of the current ones is lead remediation is extensive. This is a factor in every armory across the state of California. I didn't know that there was an underground shooting range at the armory. I did not go down in it, but I understand it's there and it's large. And so the military has been cleaning up the lead. A new factor that we have discovered is soil liquefaction in that area. So Santa Barbara Junior High is literally across the street. You all know the local neighborhood. We have a project that has been in design to replace the multipurpose room, the kitchen, and the PE locker rooms. So it's one of our largest construction projects, and it will have solar on it. What we've discovered is the soil in that area is the old lagoon, which extended from Stearns Wharf all the way up to the edge of Peabody Stadium. And so you can't build just on the dirt. You actually have to put concrete pilings 100 feet into the ground and then attach the building to it. It's also in the floodplain, so we're having to raise the level of that junior high facility by 3 feet. So the timing of learning that is really important because the armory is right there. And there are some old buildings there. They would need significant retrofitting and repairs. As I stated, the armory was built in 1938 as a WPA project, and the state has not been keeping up with the maintenance of their armories. And so that facility has a lot of structural issues and things that would not allow us to put students in there immediately. And honestly, anybody who purchased that facility would face the same challenges. So when our appraiser took all that into account, she recommended that our appraisal price was reduced by 50% compared to the original. So we've created, actually I would say Monique Lamone was really helpful in convening a meeting of officials from the Department of General Services, from the military, from our district, myself and Meg Jate, our Chief Business Officer went, and then Craig Price and Joe Shoulder from our local law firm attended. And it says, we will provide a verbal update. Here we go. You know, when two agencies communicate and negotiate in letter form, back and forth, from, 350 miles away, it's pretty difficult to negotiate through letters. And we have been doing that. I would say it's been challenging. You know, we really wanted to talk to the right people. And so it was very different in person. We had the Director of General Services there, Daniel Kim. We had a Deputy Director who's going to be our main point of contact. A colonel from the military was there, just to remind us that the proceeds will benefit all the citizens of the state of California, and we respect that. But we also have the local citizens of Santa Barbara who, we reminded them, gave the armory to the state for, I think the story was $1 back in the 1930s. We asked if they'd give it back for $1. That didn't go very far. But it was really helpful to speak in person with them. And I think the biggest outcome that we want to share is that they are going to come to Santa Barbara and send a team with their appraisers to meet with our team and our appraiser. And we were really pleased that that happened. And so I'm going to invite Craig Price to come up because he's been our lead negotiator on this, and he'll give an overview of what we hope are the next steps as we, even though they say we're not negotiating, well, we are.
You're not supposed to say that, Kerry.
I know, but
We have to be careful.
yes, we do.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, board members. I think Kerry gave an excellent summary of where we are. I'll just highlight a couple of what I consider to be important points that you may appreciate in terms of a better understanding of where we are. We didn't know when we were going to get the state appraisal. You know, we were working on it ever since DAS's legislation was passed, even before it became effective last year. And so we weren't going to sit around and wait until whenever it was decided that they were going to send it to us. So we proceeded to do a great deal of due diligence. One of the things we did was to start work on our own appraisal. And as Kerry said, at the end of the day, if you look at land values, the two appraisals are quite close together. So if that's all that was at issue, although we wouldn't want to pay that much money, we would have two appraisals that were, if not in lockstep, then very close. But in addition to retaining an appraiser, we also set about doing a great deal of due diligence, and that included hiring a structural engineering group who the district regularly uses. The geotechnical consultant has been brought in. We have worked with the Dudek firm having to do with various contaminants, and in particular lead, which through internet research we discovered was a national, not just a state problem, as exposed in a series of pieces in the Portland newspaper. And so we decided that the Board of Education wasn't going to be very happy if we didn't do everything we could to bring all of the available information out into the open so that after a potential purchase occurred, they would say, what's with all these millions of dollars of work that's needed? And so at every step of the way, as we gathered this information and we found out more and more, we provided it to the Department of General Services. We gave them our appraisal, we gave them a structural report, we gave them a cost estimate from the Deani Construction Company as to what it would likely cost in order to do the structural renovations that were necessary to deal with the seismic issues in the, particularly the main building, of course. We gave them the information that the superintendent mentioned about the tremendous cost that had been incurred, was being incurred at Santa Barbara Junior High School on account of the liquefaction. And we had our own consulting teams from Dudek send out their teams every time the military went in and attempted to clean up the lead to see if the lead was really cleaned up. Well, it wasn't, and we still have open issues. But the point of all that I would bring to bear is that the state appraisal, we found out when we got it at the end of January, was actually completed in May of 2017. At the time their appraisal was done, therefore, the state was not aware of these various issues, except they knew, of course, that there had been some lead issues, and so they had put in the contract that the military would clean up the lead in certain areas that were identified to a certain standard. But other than that, they weren't aware of these various issues. So as we presented this information to them, we expected that at a certain point, once we received their agreement and once we finally received their appraisal, that the purchase price would reflect all these various problems. And it didn't. And so that was very troubling. And the superintendent wrote a letter to the state outlining the concerns and how we were troubled by the fact that these various problems reflected an approximate discount of 50% in the otherwise value of the property. And how was it possible that this was not taken into account? So 3 weeks ago, we got a response from DGS that said, well, the problems that you've pointed out are really problems that are unique to you as a school district in terms of what we might have to do to convert it into a school building. And so our purpose in going up there was to make it as clear as we possibly could that the problems that exist at that site don't have anything to do with any particular plan that the school district has. And as Meg Jate pointed out at the meeting, we don't even have a plan because we've decided to make sure we're going to get the property before we start the public process that's involved in developing a plan. So how could these issues be solely related to our plan? And so we had a discussion with them about the fact that the problems that have been encountered, the biggest one that we know with certainty is the structural problem and the retrofitting that needs to be done at the Armory Gymnasium, the main building. Our structural engineer has said it's dangerous in its present condition. And what is going to need to occur is not just because the Division of State Architect that oversees school buildings is going to require us to do unique things, but rather because anybody that goes in there and is going to make use of that facility and bring in gatherings of people is going to be required to make it safe, whether it's under California Building Code as adopted by the city or whether it's under the Division of State Architect. And we compared it to what happens when an appraisal is done on the site of a former gas station or a former laundromat. Anybody that comes along is going to have to deal with a major problem, and appraisals routinely discount the value of the property based upon the work that's likely to be done. So we talked to them about those things. And lastly, we talked to them about the fact that their own appraisal specifically stated in several areas that the appraiser had no knowledge of the existence of any of these problems, which is true because they hadn't been identified yet. And if there were these problems that came to light, that would affect his opinion of value, and he would want to be consulted all over again. So really, with those arguments, the state was receptive and open, and their deputy director of DGS said, well, in light of the fact that we've never had face-to-face meetings, let's get the two teams together and see if we can work it out. The question in appraisal terms becomes whether, in this situation, a determination of the fair market value of the property needs to incorporate a discount for problems that any purchaser would experience, understanding that the cost of fixing those problems can't be quantified with any kind of exactitude because we don't have a proposal and some theoretical third-party buyer certainly doesn't have a proposal. But you can certainly get your arms around the fact that there will have to be a great deal of money spent to rectify these things. So we were very encouraged by their receptivity to the position that we took. And in closing, I'd just like to say that throughout the process of conducting our due diligence, both our appraiser and district staff had occasion to contact your staff at the city, Paul Casey and others, and we're very appreciative of the full cooperation, collaboration, and useful information that we received in that context. So thank you. If there are any questions?
We have a public comment.
We do have two speakers to speak. Yes. Philip Walker, followed by Lanny Evenstein.
Good afternoon, members of the joint board here. I'm a longtime resident of the Lower East Side. My stepson attended Franklin School and also graduated from Santa Barbara High. Actually, a number of coworkers. I did 35 years at El Estero wastewater treatment plant, and a number of coworkers from, unfortunately, the gentleman, God rest his soul, Josh Canning, was a football star. I worked with Johnny Tarver, who retired from the Montecito Sanitary District. He was a track star at Santa Barbara High. A good friend, worked on shift with him. Ed McGregor graduated from Santa Barbara High. So, there's a strong connection with Santa Barbara High, the junior high, and this whole area, and the workforce. And it's been a mutual benefit to everybody. A couple quick items, though. I ran the wastewater reclamation facility when it went online in 1989, August, and they had a line extending to Santa Barbara High, and that turf looked real good forever. I know it's probably a maintenance cost consideration why they decided to go with the artificial turf instead of a natural turf field, but I have misgivings about, I'll call it plastic grass. And there's, the question that was arrived, it's probably still under litigation at the San Ynez Valley High School District, and their failing artificial turf field has raised a lot of questions across the U.S. even. And it turns out the Galaxy soccer team that's moved to L.A. now, in Minnesota, they played at the University of Minnesota field, and they had 3 serious injuries in one day playing on that artificial turf, so it bears questioning. And what I'd just like to say, this, it's a situation close in the works, so to speak, with the Armory. I spent a lot of time in the U.S. Army, regular Army, 1966 to 69, and we were at Fort Lewis, Washington, basic training. We went in the they're wooden 2-story barracks, and
30 seconds.
Okay, they would burn down in 35 minutes, so you had to stand fire watch beside all the training, KP and everything else. But sometimes building cheaper is better in this case. What I see is a money pit on steroids, possibly. Thank you.
That concludes the speakers.
Members of the council, members of the school board, Dr. Matsuoka, Mr. Casey, thank you for your service to our community, and I think the joint meetings are an excellent idea. I think that this is a great opportunity, and I just wanted to encourage you to continue with your efforts to seek acquisition of the Santa Barbara National Guard Armory. Its location between Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School is almost ideal. And Dr. Matsuoka mentioned how this is a building that's been in existence for close to 100 years. My guess is that if this finally does come to fruition, 100 years from now, that may be among the most utilized areas of the community for educational and other purposes. So it's a true opportunity to enhance our community, our schools, our civic infrastructure in a way that it's hard to imagine what would be comparable at this point in time, at this late date in our community's development. To be able to get a full city block is something that would really be a great asset. I appreciate that these are issues that require if not negotiation, then presentation in a manner to ensure that all interest, all aspects of the property value are considered, and I encourage you to continue that process. I know that there's a lot of excitement from people in the community, both at Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School and on the east side as well, of individuals who really look forward to acquisition of the Armory. I wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to just toss out one idea that has been circulated, and perhaps this is a little bit early, but never hurts to dream. And one idea that's been considered is that there's always been a need for more fields on the east side in particular. And it seems as though with acquisition of the Armory, that in particular De La Guerra Street between the Armory and Santa Barbara Junior High is something that could really be looked at carefully in terms of is that a field area that could then, joining up with the portion of the Armory closest to Santa Barbara Junior High and then the Santa Barbara Junior High fields, could we create more field space in that immediate vicinity? That's obviously something that would require both the participation of the city and the school district, but I'm sure that if this project goes forward, that this is going to be something that perhaps through the joint use agreement between the city and the school district, it'll be the opportunity to discuss ways that both agencies can work together really to create a facility there and a site that will be of great benefit to the community. Thanks very much for your consideration, for your continued efforts on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for our public comment, and thank you to Mr. Price and Mr. Matsuoka. I want to now open it to council members and the board, if there are any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, Mayor Murillo.
Thank you, Madam President. So Superintendent Matsuoka, so 11.6 million is the appraisal. Clarify that for me, please. Does that mean that that's what they want, but if they were to take into consideration the contamination, it should be lower? I'm kind of not understanding. They didn't take that into consideration.
Right. When they sent us their purchase and sale contract, they listed 11.6 million as the purchase price. But as Mr. Price pointed out, their appraisal was done prior to knowledge of all these facility issues, the liquefaction. And so that's what we were encouraged with, that when we spoke to them in person, they realized they need to look at the appraisal. And so the hope is that in light of these new conditions, that their appraiser, and they are required to follow rules and laws about appraisal of land value, that price point would come down.
So there's an option that they would sell it for a lower price or clean it up and then ask you for 11.6 million. That's another option?
Well,
no, because they can't do the seismic upgrades, right?
Right. They are required by law to clean up the lead.
Okay.
But they can't clean up soil liquefaction.
Okay.
And they can't clean up the structural issues in the building. Well, they could, but I don't think DGS is interested in fixing the building before they sell.
Understood. So Mr. Ebenstein brings up an interesting idea. If you turn it into fields, can the contamination stay there, or do you see what I'm saying? If it's going to be a playing field, maybe there's a way to accept it. If the problems are underground, maybe you don't need to fix it.
Well, the lead has to be cleaned up by law when you do a property transaction. You know, the soil liquefaction would not be an issue for a play field, soccer field, but it's going to be an issue for any facility, any building structure on the property.
And that's what you have in mind, is some kind of structure?
Well, as has been shared, you know, I've received the ideas of the community and the school board when I came into this role. I mean, we've talked about perhaps career technical education facilities has been probably the largest idea that's been given to me. But wow, we have a junior high and a senior high right next door. The other interested party is Santa Barbara City College. And we've had preliminary conversations with Dr. Beebe, and they are interested in doing some kind of collaboration with us about a K-14 space. So, there's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of partnerships to be explored, and I think Santa Barbara's got great potential to look at how can we support, yes, athletics, our high school and junior high program, but also the needs of our, community college, and today with workforce development and retraining of people, I think that's a fantastic opportunity.
Okay, and my final question, ma'am. The report says that prior to the close of escrow, the district needs to complete a limited CEQA analysis. So obviously, there's no escrow yet, but that is something that you all will take up.
Right, I believe Mr. Price could correct me. We're putting into the close of escrow process that we need to complete whatever CEQA steps that we need to do as the school district.
Okay, and the ball is in their court right now as to adjusting the appraisal.
Well, I think the ball is going to be a shared conversation, and I mean, we were, again, very encouraged that they are willing to come down to Santa Barbara to have those conversations. Our first step is to have them see the buildings, to walk down here, because there are people in Sacramento that have been doing all of these negotiations but haven't walked the property. They haven't seen the site. And I think once they see it, it will put sort of a real perspective about what our concerns that we brought.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Ms. Parker? Is it?
Well, I don't have questions per se, more comments, if we can go ahead and move on with that. I just wanted to say thank you to staff and to district support for making that trip up to Sacramento. I mean, it's clearly making a big difference. We have a huge responsibility to local taxpayers, since this is paid for. It was set aside from our last secondary bond as something that we would be purchasing. And I want to be sure that we're doing right by local taxpayers on this, and that it doesn't turn into the money pit on steroids as it absolutely could. And I appreciate all of Dr. Ebenstein's comments. I mean, this is a project that has been a fantasy for both the city and the school district for many, many years, and so it seems miraculous that we're making progress forward, although, my goodness, it is slow progress. But compared to what we've been doing for the past 15, 20 years, I guess in some ways it seems like it's like a roadrunner, right? I want to be cautious, though, with the community. You've really laid out very clearly that we have not started a planning discussion on what would go in there next. I absolutely know that we have members of the community that want to jump on that gym and get that going again and get that being used. And so I want to be clear, and maybe this is something that you can comment with Mr. Matsuoka. We have had structural engineers say to us that that gym is not currently safe. So if the purchase does go through, whatever the larger planning is, we can't reopen that gym anytime soon. Can you just speak to that?
I will confirm that statement, that if we are the owners of that building and we get lots of requests for use of facilities, I mean, gymnasiums are one of the highest uses in any community. We as a school district would not rent that facility out until we've deemed it structurally sound and safe.
Thank you. And so I hope as community members hear this, that they are understanding that we would love to have it out and something that can be used before anything else. But it is not going to be something that's fast, unfortunately. But, slow and steady. Thank you.
Councilmember Rouse.
Thank you. Dr. Matsuoka, Dr. Ebenstein, you both brought up the idea of collaborations or partnerships. And I was wondering, number one, what the strict restrictions on financing, what the mechanism is for that. I actually had a conversation with some folks at the Housing Authority today who thought, hey, if there's a part of that that could become affordable housing, perhaps for, staff or work some kind of workforce. And I didn't know how far you could go with that and still remain within the parameters of the financing mechanism.
Well, the Measure I funds that the community supported us on, that has to be spent on educational facilities. So we all know we need more workforce housing. That would be a community board conversation, should we consider that. But we would not be able to use Measure I funds, certainly to build it. I'd have to check with our legal counsel to see if the purchase of the land upon which we build workforce housing would get us in trouble with the use of school bond money. So we are limited as a school district. When we invest money to purchase land, that land has to be used for school-oriented use. I think workforce housing would probably be questionable. It really needs to stay on the side of instruction, athletics, things that are tied to our mission as a school district. As far as partnerships, that's where City College makes a lot of sense, because their mission is, it's another extension of our mission. So I don't see any challenges with commingling funding supports, but I think when we get into like other spaces, then we'd have to take a look at the legality of the use of the purchase money out of Measure I in support of facility uses that aren't related to school facilities. Yeah.
Ms. Capps? Thank you. I want to echo Ms. Parker's praise for the fact that you did such a skillful job, it sounds like, in Sacramento, and to just work with the state directly and make them see, rather than them digging in on the price, to sort of see that we don't have a plan for school children, and so this would be therefore anyone's problem, essentially, is what I understand, and I appreciate that nuance, because that's going to open up this door. And I think when you went up to Sacramento, you really took with you the years, the decade of interest in this property, which is widespread. It's something that I hear about anecdotally a lot, and I know, having worked on the bond, that it was a key reason that people were so supportive. I think someone described it sort of as the cherry on top. They want to support education, but the fact that this extremely valuable piece of property that is just beautifully juxtaposed between two pillars of our school system, and what an opportunity, you think about it. Now, it could be nationally known as this corridor of education, given the beauty of this property and how it sits. So it's great that you're working so hard to make this dream, even though it's more challenging than we thought, a reality. My recommendation is to just, as we are doing now, and I think it's an important first step, there's been a lot of confusion and sort of excitement about the bond passing and then not a lot of information. I think the more that we bring the community along, that there are these really serious challenges, as you've just outlined now in a public meeting, I think the better, because again, anecdotally, we often hear, oh, let's do this with the building, let's do this with the building, and just time has gone by very slowly, and I think it's just important, again, if more time goes by, it sounds like it will, and if we are able to succeed, the fact that we're not just going to snap our fingers and there's going to be some beautiful new project that the community can take, but rather bringing the community along so they understand the price tag and the challenges, and why this might, again, take a little bit longer than even we had hoped with the passage of that bond. So thank you.
Mr. Friedman?
Hey, I just want to echo the comments. Thank you for doing your due diligence for this project, and I'm really pleased to see that you're considering, for the future use of the site, should it come into the district, about both academics and athletics, because I think academics is a huge component of where we want our schools to go in the future, in providing really enhanced academic facilities as well as athletics. And Mr. Ebenstein's comments got me to thinking, do we know what the zoning is for that? And what is the zoning for that? And that's my only question.
R3. It's residential R3.
Thank you. Councilmember Hart.
Whoops, there we go. Well, I just want to echo all the positive comments from both the council and board members about this process and the new progress. I know that initially it was delayed getting out of the starting gate because Department of General Services didn't give you a purchase price until very recently. So that has, I think, shifted folks' timetable here locally. Folks here didn't understand that delay and the reason for it. So now we have a real process, and Assemblymember Lamone's help in that process is critical and really helpful. I know that she took the initiative to put that meeting together and really get you in the room for the first time, and that is a gigantic leap forward in this process. But I do have a couple of questions about details about the CEQA process. So what is the box that you're going to use to define the uses to go through a secret process prior to a visioning process?
Excellent question, because we've needed to tackle that ourselves in terms of making sure that we fully comply with the CEQA requirements. So what has been determined and what is underway right now is the preparation of what I'll call a first phase CEQA document that would cover only the time period following the initial acquisition, during which there would be minimal use of the facility. And so the issues that would be associated with the acquisition itself and with any interim use, which would be very limited and very restrictive, as the superintendent indicated, for example, with the gymnasium, would be looked at. So we're not anticipating that those issues are going to be significant, but they still need to be put on the table and examined, and DUDEC is at work on that. So, for example, if there was going to be some large-scale movement of personnel or something somewhere onto the site, we'd be looking at the associated traffic inputs, and so on and so on. You get where I'm going. But the use that we've been talking about, the information that's been given to DUDEC, involves only very limited, very restrictive use, really for the, I think, the housing of some district vehicles and storage is really what we've been talking about. Obviously, we can't do the fuller environmental review that will need to be undertaken once a plan develops. As you know, we are obligated to do a CEQA analysis at the earliest possible time once we have a project description. Right now, our project description is limited to acquisition and temporary occupancy, and that will be followed by a process that Mr. Matsuoka and the board will lead in terms of putting together the ideas, developing a plan, and ultimately a project description. And then the district, in this case, being a school district, will serve as the lead agency, with your honorable group being a responsible agency, will move forward through an analysis which I expect will need to be much more rigorous than the first stage. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That's a great answer, and I appreciate that clarification. The other question I had to do with the concerns about lead contamination and the search that you did to learn about potential issues across the country about the different standard of remediation that might be done by the military on those kind of sites. So is that something that remains an issue of concern for the district in relation to General Services' sense of obligation about that? Is that something that it's a technical issue that everybody can find an agreement on a standard and get there, or is that something that's going to potentially be an open-ended conversation?
I'm very sorry. Go ahead. It's somewhat open-ended, and here's why. I mentioned that at the time the state appraisal was done, they did know that there was a lead issue there. They had actually known for some time. And because they knew of that, and because of federal regulations that deal with that subject, they placed in their sale agreement that they would clean up lead particulates in areas that had been identified in surveys that they had previously undertaken to a level of 40 micrograms per square foot. And so they went in and they did that work. Our team went in and identified areas where they were to have cleaned it up, as well as other areas that weren't entirely clean. And they went back and they did it another time. And our team went back in again after that. And we identified and have presented to the state a total of 10 areas that are so-called identified areas that we believe continue to exceed the threshold. And we're waiting now to hear whether the military will agree to go back in and do a further cleanup, as the sale agreement now requires. One complicating factor, besides that uncertainty, is that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in February issued a decision that requires the Environmental Protection Agency to reduce the lead standard because of its known dangers. And although they didn't specify what the level would be, there was a very clear indication that it was going to be much, much lower, which is consistent with what HUD has already done. We haven't seen anything come back yet, but with the present occupant of the cabinet member who's running the EPA, we're not quite sure, when we're going to see something. But we're looking at that, and we realize that we are going to need to continue to evaluate that issue in connection with our use of the facility, irrespective of what the military does.
Well, thank you for that clarification, too. There certainly are some challenges in this process, but the big vision is really important to the community, and the fact that you have General Services at the table coming to the district to see the facility in person and understand these issues more clearly is a big first step, and that we got to just take this one step at a time, because if you look too far down the road at the complexities, it could be daunting. And I just want to be encouraging, and if the city can help in any way, we're there to do that.
Yes, Councilmember Snedden.
I think this is very exciting, and in the last 15 years or so with academies and dual enrollment and all the different opportunities with City College, and when you mentioned K through 14, I was just wondering if you could elaborate on that. Would that be a space for a cohort going through K through 14, or a shared space that different ages could come and utilize, or just the vision for that? I know it's preliminary, but yeah.
Right, when I say K-14, because we're a K-12 organization and we think of community colleges as 2 more years, probably the biggest partnerships you see between school districts are high school programming with community college programming. I mean, we have so much dual enrollment that happens already. And a topic to be explored, City College is actually really close geographically to the east side. But is there some leverage with having City College courses taught off-site? I mean, that's one model that a lot of school districts partner with community colleges. But there's also, the future workforce training for 2020 and 2030 has got to be so mobile and so different. And if you've got a facility that you could create, perhaps we could partner on, robotics, autonomous everythings. I mean, there's so much need for programs of the future. So most of those partnerships between school districts are around high school programming and community college. So it's really a grade 9 through 14 on the ground partnership. Yeah.
Mr. Paredes Ulloa.
Thank you. One thing that I'd like for us to consider, I know we don't have any plans right now, but just kind of this Monday heat spike kind of just reminded me, Santa Barbara High School is a historic building, and as we've spoken before, very hard to retrofit. So I hope whatever considerations we make as far as programming, partnerships, et cetera, we would create some sort of space to help alleviate or to help our students out in those days that are really hot, especially the beginning of August. Santa Maria, Lompoc, we have closed down schools because of the heat, and again, Santa Barbara High School, I went there and I know how hot that building can get. So again, anything that we can consider, along with, of course, solarizing, but just some sort of basic HVAC system that would hold a good number of students so that they wouldn't be burning up in those classrooms or out on the field, would be greatly appreciated. Again, regardless of what our plans are, consider the safety and the comfort of our students.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Council member.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm excited about this and hope it happens quickly. I like the idea of the K through 14, although I understand there's probably hundreds of things we can do to really take advantage of that land. But speaking to the K to 14, I went to junior college when I was in high school, and I went before I had a driver's license. I went with my brother. But of course, we fought over our class schedules and had to pick classes at different times. So my mom ended up having to drive me separately, and it would have solved the problems if the classes were right there on campus, so that would be, to me, a great use. And then I went on and I actually taught high school for a year. So to have a big facility there between a high school and a junior high, you can imagine a lot of possibilities, particularly like what you're talking about in terms of being able to train a workforce in this economic environment that's so challenging. And I think this really presents some great opportunities. So thank you for working on this.
All right. I just want to say that it's been wonderful to have additional comments and transparency and discussion going forward with this. And I want to echo Ms. Capps in saying the importance of bringing this and continuing this process of transparency with the community to ensure that they can follow along and understand the process and the challenges that we're facing, but that we are, hopeful and passionate about having this be successful. I also want to just again echo having past school board member Monique Limon at the other end has been really helpful, and the importance as we are creating here of relationship building. And so I think this is a great entree, and the idea of actually having them come back and see exactly what we're talking about. So I think that extra effort and the due diligence that has been done by our legal counselor, Mr. Matsuoka, I'm very appreciative of that. So looking forward to hearing what conversations come out of that connection, and when they come here, hopefully they're going to do what we want. All right, so moving forward, as I mentioned earlier, we're now going to have an update on Peabody Stadium. David Hetjunk, Director of Facilities and Operations.
Thank you, board members, city council members, Mr. Casey, Mr. Matsuoka. To augment a brief written report, I have prepared a slide. A brief slideshow bringing you up to date on some of the construction activities at the site. The original layout of Peabody Stadium, the proposed layout of Peabody Stadium. These are items that were presented at the last joint meeting and some renderings. We have a donor wall and a new stadium with some historic type features. This is the home side seating prior to demolition. During demolition, the stadium came down easier than anticipated. You'll see the section in the middle is still standing because at the time that's where the Southern California Edison utilities came into the stadium, and they had not disconnected that box from the pole yet, so that little section stayed upright a little bit longer than usual. Here is that section and another section showing the old walkway from the top. Cleaning and grading, you can see the ticket booth at the top, a little more exposed than it was previously. Again, the visitor bleachers are the only thing remaining in that stadium, and so all of the elevations for the new facility were based on the elevation of that visitor bleacher. We also replacing two storm drains that pass through under Peabody Stadium. One of the new pipes is 42 inches in diameter, and the other is 54, and just a photo of those being installed. In addition, there's going to be a number of retaining walls at that site, and as you drive through a lot of freeway construction in the area, you'll notice piles and lagging to hold back earth wall. Retaining walls are being built, and the same is true at Peabody Stadium, where we have numerous retaining walls, sometimes 2 on the same slope. To put these steel plates in, they just vibrate them in. Big vibrator just slips right in. This is the footing for the retaining wall for the Walk of the Dons. The senior parking lot is in the background, the visitor bleachers in the foreground, and that was just a 300-yard pour one day just for the footings of the retaining wall. A lot of concrete and steel going into the facility besides the stadium itself. There's just some forming of the upper wall there by the Walk of the Dons. You can see the ticket booth bracing and shoring while we're under construction in that area with retaining walls. It's a historic structure, a city landmark, and we wanted to make sure it stayed there during construction. So we took a little extra effort in securing that facility. Just an overall kind of panoramic view of the stadium construction from a few weeks ago. And just want to, again, what I always try and do is always remember to thank the taxpayers, because they're the ones that make these projects possible. And if there's any questions on the slideshow or the written report, I'd be more than happy to answer them. To me, it's one of the most exciting projects that I've had the pleasure of being involved with in all of my construction years. So I'm very happy to be part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hetniak. And also, he's retiring, so you're stepping away. So
Yes.
you better stay close by, though, seeking you for information. Any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Paredes Ulloa.
So last week, I actually had the good fortune of taking a day off and attending to some school district business, and part of that was getting a tour of Peabody Stadium, the current site. And as a very proud Don, I was very excited to be able to walk that whole area. They had already kind of set up the grade for the Walk of the Dons, and I can imagine a lot of our kids walking down that next year. And again, I'm just really impressed. When I got there, they were about to connect one of the storm drains going towards the hill. And it looks like they're just doing amazing, amazing work. They're really on it. I know that the fire and the mud flow really, really slowed them down, especially for just the health hazard of the fire and all the ash in the air, but they've been working really fast and really diligently on bringing this back up. They're still looking, from my conversation with the construction manager, they're still looking for April, May to be their deadline. And again, I just couldn't be any more impressed with how the project is going, and seeing these renderings makes me even more excited, because I do remember what it's like to walk down the old stadium or playing on that old field, and I look forward to being able to walk on that new field within the next year or so.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're about 35% complete, and the new completion date is April 30th, a year from now.
Ms. Parker.
Thank you. That's great to hear, because I think the debris flow also ended up pulling a lot of contractors off during that first intensive week or two.
Right. When the freeway was closed, it really impacted the project because most of the general contractor for this project is from Santa Clarita. A lot of the workforce and a lot of the materials are coming from the south and not the north. So when the freeway closed down, it kind of shut down the project, which was great timing for some subcontractors that were there who were able to assist with the disaster with excavators and other equipment.
Yeah. I'm glad both for the class of 2019, who will be the inaugural Dons to walk the new walk, but also we have community organizations that are already eager to get in line to use this facility. Will not just be for our students, of course. Students will get a huge amount of use, and it both through athletics, PE, and other community events, school events that will be going on there. For the public's sake, can you say where the class of 2018 will be walking?
Well, the graduation for 2018 is at the Bowl, and at the moment, I'm not sure exactly where they're going to be walking.
Just across the stage, probably, but maybe they can create a red carpet for them.
At one time, we talked about if there was any way to do any walking at graduation time, to having it there, but with the current state of construction, it just wouldn't be safe to have students in that area at this time, and that's unfortunate, but we need to put safety first.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Friedman.
Just had a quick comment. This is a great project and much needed, and thank you for getting it on track and it's going. And I just want to say it's a terrific project, and I especially appreciate that the only remaining part is the visitors' bleachers.
Yes, Ms. Capps.
I'm going to be consistent with my comments about the armory. I think that, this is a huge price tag and much, much bigger than we anticipated. But I do believe, I thank the district, because I think that all of the work that went into laying the groundwork for why that was so, with the neighborhood meetings and all of the outreach that happened, I think that's a big testament to why we're not hearing as much about from citizens and neighbors about the dramatic increase in price. And just from my colleagues, it's nice to have everyone here. I encourage you, if you happen to be, I was walking on Mission Ridge, and if you look down, it caught my eye just how massive this project is, and it sort of puts that price tag into visualization a little bit. It's nice to be on the ground and walk around, but if you see it from the Riviera, it's quite stunning. So I encourage you to check it out. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Councilmember Sneddon.
Thank you. I was just wondering, since we had the comment about the difference between plastic grass and grass, if you could just address that so that we could all be behind your choices.
The stadium is getting larger because there's two athletic improvements taking place. Number one is the installation of an all-weather track. Before, the high school had to use City College facilities for track meets. So that's making the bowl larger. That's causing all the retaining walls. Currently, we will be putting in a artificial turf field similar to the one at San Marcos High School and City College. It'll be an upgrade of that turf with the latest one available. We chose artificial turf for one primary reason, and that is the number of activities that take place on that field during the course of a year. If you've ever attended any football games, by the end of football season, it could be more of a mud bowl than a grass field. You have not only football, you have soccer, you have lacrosse, you have physical education. The field is just used all the time, and even though we're able to use reclaimed water, and we do use reclaimed water on all the other fields at Santa Barbara High School, the demand for the use of this field dictates that to us that we should have artificial turf on that field, and we are also doing the same artificial turf at Dos Pueblos High School this summer.
Ms. Sims-Moton?
Yes, just to add on to that, so the speakers also spoke about injuries. Are we looking into that to mitigate any injuries or taking that into consideration?
We've not seen any significant increase or any increase in injuries from the time that we've had our field at San Marcos High School. And it's basically the same subsurface and surface.
Mr. Paredes Ulloa?
Just going back to your comment, Mr. Helyank, about the multiple teams being able to use it. Again, when I played ball at Santa Barbara High School, if there was a big varsity game coming up, we were not allowed to touch that field. Absolutely not. So it was the varsity team and nothing else. Same thing with soccer practice, anything else that would normally use that field. So we would all be kind of squished onto the back baseball field. So having this as our official turf would actually help just kind of spread out the number of practices we can have, the number of activities we can have on one field, and spread out to the other fields as well. So again, if it's not any more dangerous, then fantastic, and being able to have those students. Because again, I remember being a poor little freshman football player and having to run to the backfield while the big bad varsity team got to take the main field for practice and all their main games.
Thank you, and we're glad you're going to be able to walk on this field this time. Any other comments? All right, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Hetjunk, and thank you for an excellent update. So moving on to number 8, youth activities provided by libraries. We have Jessica Caliente, City of Santa Barbara Library Director.
Good afternoon, Mayor Murillo, council members. Oh, thank you. President Reed and board members, it's an honor to be here today. I am Jessica Caliente, the Library Director for the Santa Barbara Public Library, and a proud mom of a Dawn and a Condor as well. And we are very excited to be here today. We've had a lot of changes at the public library over the past few years, but one steadfast pillar that we have been committed to is education. That has been a mission of the Santa Barbara Public Library and continues to be so. We provide free public education to everyone, from our babies to our very wise seniors. We do that by delivering curriculum-driven programs, classes, and events. We are constantly analyzing the different curriculums that we provide and boosting those that are in the highest needs, such as early literacy and technology. And today I have some of my amazing team here with me. They're truly the subject experts, so they will be presenting on the various aspects of the educational services at the Santa Barbara Public Library. And first, I would like to introduce Vanessa Christman, our Assistant Library Director.
Good afternoon, Mayor Murillo and President Reed, council members and board members. I'm excited to kick off this presentation. I know your time is valuable, so we're going to try to, librarians aren't really known for their brevity, but we're going to try to keep it brief and get through this presentation for you and still be informative. We are going to hear from some of our excellent and completely unintentionally color-coordinated staff members to hear about what we're doing to support schools and improve educational outcomes in the community. You'll be able to hear firsthand how dedicated our staff members are and how seriously that they take this role. It's an extraordinary amount of dedication from these staff members, and I've come to expect that from them on a consistent basis. And that is actually why we are honored to be the 2018 recipient of the Hope Award from the Santa Barbara Education Foundation. The ceremony is going to take place on April 26th at 5:30. We are giving this award specifically for our response to the Thomas Fire and the Montecito debris flow, and particularly what our response and the work of our staff meant to children and families in the area. Okay. So after the schools closed, our staff immediately understood that families and children would come to the library. And even with our own staffing constraints due to evacuation, many of our staff members were evacuated themselves, road closures. Our staff worked together to plan and implement a large scale of new additional programming on top of what we already do on a regular basis, specifically designed to support and engage students and emulate some of the best love aspects of the school day, but in a safe indoor environment. In total, staff conducted 78 youth programs over a 22-day span. School-age children enjoyed indoor recess programs, Lego, music and movement programs, coding with robots, all more, quite a bit more than that, all while schools were closed and communities were under threat. In the very next month, Santa Barbara Public Library staff supported schools and students displaced by the Montecito debris flow. As soon as the schools were closed, our staff made connections with Montecito school administrators, teachers, and librarians in order to come up with ways to support displaced students. We hosted students from the public and private schools. The library delivered over 200 books to Montecito school administrators and to teachers. And we even visited temporary classrooms located at the Santa Barbara City College. Library staff provided engaging STEAM programming, on-site story times, and a lot of other kind of valuable programs, curriculum-based educational programs to students who were displaced by these crises. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve our community and children during these crises, but service to schools and students is an everyday reality of ours. So we are going to turn this presentation over to our excellent, as Jessica mentioned, content experts to discuss a number of elements, including early literacy, programs for school-aged children, our technology and STEM resources, programs for teens, and we'll briefly cover some of the adult and literacy programs that we offer. And without further ado, it's Holly with early literacy.
Good afternoon, Mayor Murillo, President Reed, members of the board, and council members. I am Holly Broman, and I am the children's librarian at the Santa Barbara Public Library. And early literacy is a large part of my job. We have so many classes every week, and this here is one of our classes. You can see the children in this picture are mostly toddlers. I know them now as preschoolers. They've been coming to our classes regularly for years now, and I see them maybe 3 times a week at least. I have seen them learn so much. They have learned how to count, they have learned how to predict stories, and they've really created a community for themselves at the library, I believe. So, without further ado, let's see what we have going on. We have about 8 early literacy story times every week, and they're 5 days a week. The story times include Baby and Me and Wiggly for toddlers, preschool, and music and movement, as well as bilingual on Saturdays. And all of these programs are meant to allow our children to age up through them and have developmentally appropriate content in each of them. This doesn't mean that we don't allow people who are too old or too young for the target to come. We allow everyone to come, but we really want to make sure that the children are learning at the level that they need to. We also have recently started sensory story times, one Saturday a month. We developed it after a community assessment telling us that they wanted more autism spectrum disorder related activities at the library. So this story time really targets that group. We allow all community members to attend it, but we require a registration so that it was under 12 children in the activity so that it is not overwhelming. We also allow for manipulatives throughout story time, and we keep it very structured and consistent. So far, we've gotten very positive feedback from the community members and regular attendance. Also, at the library, we have all of our programs based on evidence-based practice. Every Child Ready to Read is one of these evidence-based practices. And every time we do a story time, we bring this in and we give parents literacy tips and other things they can take home with them to help their children really have an enriched experience with learning. And we've taken this a step further now because we're about to start a class which is 4 sessions for parents and caregivers. And this class will allow all parents and caregivers to really in-depthly understand Every Child Ready to Read. It's going to be offered in English and in Spanish. And so we're hoping that all of our community members will really be empowered. 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten is another program that is increasing early literacy. Every time that children read 100 books with their parents, they get to bring that sheet that they recorded that 100 books into the library and get a prize. And that prize is just always lighting up their faces. They also get to know us library staff members, and we get to know them, and they see the library as a positive place. This picture right here in the corner is a graduation. After they read 1,000 books, they get to come in for a graduation about every other month, and they have a great time. It's usually at a preschool story time, so even children who aren't in the program get to see the accomplishments of other children, and it really, I think, gets them interested, and they can then begin reading that 1,000 books that will really, I think, prepare them for school in the future. We really try to focus on preparing children for school. The collection development that we have going on is also really focused on getting books to children that will get them excited and ready so that they can be ready for school. Our collection development is really books, DVDs, all of that, selecting everything for our collection. And we really try to make sure that it impacts the community where they need it. So this picture in the far corner is a picture of our new literacy kits. They are bilingual, a lot of them. They have 5 books around a theme. They have toys or puzzles that are around that theme as well, and they also have literacy tips and activities for parents or caregivers to do with their children at home. When we started this, there were over 20 on the shelf, and now we can hardly keep 3 on the shelf at a time. So this really shows that our community really wanted this, and we try to also make sure that other things that the community needs, like bilingual and Spanish books, are constantly on our shelves. At the library, family is really central. We try to make sure that families feel comfortable and safe and welcome in our library spaces. We also try to make programs that are open to all, and every month we have 2 all-ages programs that are really huge blowouts, a lot of fun. As you can see here, there's a couple that are just huge parties practically. We also try to make sure that there are learning opportunities that are geared towards all ages. So if there are crafts, then there's ones that are advanced, and there are ones that the itty-bitties can do. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Gonzalez. Thank you very much.
It's really close to my face. Good afternoon, Mayor Murillo, President Reed, council members, and members of the board. I'm so honored to be here talking about, we'll see what I'm talking about, let's see, our school age program. And I wanted to start out with a brief story about the Reading Ambassadors program, which actually many of our council members have participated in. As you can see, you may recognize a few faces up there. There's also, oh yeah, I think we cut out our AOK staff, but there were school district staff members at that graduation as well, I'm sorry. So I met a child named Rodrigo a few years ago at Harding School. He was a 3rd grader, and we came out to teach him storytelling. Reading Ambassadors program is all about teaching kids to be storytellers. The idea is that they're going to bring those skills back to their families, because as we know, there's all kinds of families in Santa Barbara. We have families that read together. We have families that don't. We have families that are intimidated by the English language. We have families that maybe don't have anyone in the house who has time to read because they have so many jobs, or has been educated to the point where reading feels comfortable or like a leisure activity for them. So our idea is that since every child in Santa Barbara is being educated to read, and usually really well, they're developing these skills, they could become storytellers and learn a new way to bring reading. With so many digital distractions, often kids don't think that opening a book with their sibling might be a fun activity. So that's the idea behind this particular program. But my friend Rodrigo here, we came the first time and we said, okay, we're going to teach you to be storytellers. This is your mission. The city of Santa Barbara is charging you to go out and read to your community. They get really excited about that part. Rodrigo let me know, this isn't going to work for me. I don't know how to read. I don't like reading. And I'm really bad at it. And I was bummed. Rodrigo was a big guy. He was tall for his age, and he was just a big guy. I could tell he maybe had some social difficulties. He wasn't, the kids were a little shy around him, didn't have as many friends as some of his peers. But we pressed on. We brought some wordless picture books, which are books that have no text, because that really helps the kids untie themselves from the idea that they really need to get every single letter right in every single word, because their teachers have been very, very diligent at building those phonics skills and awareness. So the first thing we do is say, no, right now your goal is to tell a story. Here's some pictures, you can do this. And Rodrigo did do that. The second half of the curriculum involves bringing in a first grader. We pair them up, and we have the third grader tell the story to the first grader. And I could tell the first grader did not want to go with Rodrigo. There was some definite body language there. But again, we said everyone's going to give this activity a try. And it turned out that Rodrigo had an amazing dramatic flair. And he just had his partner laughing. He was illustrating the story. The fact that there were no words in it had kind of liberated this creativity in him that he didn't really associate with reading, unfortunately, at this point in his young career. The second session, we did bring in books with words, and we challenged Rodrigo a little bit to try the words, but we did give permission to stray from the words. If they're too hard, that's okay. You can choose another book. You can go back to the pictures. The point is to be a storyteller, because we know that in the house with a 3-year-old, the words on the page are much less important than that association with books and the idea of asking questions and building some comprehension skills. And if the third grader or fourth grader, as they will become, starts to really understand the words and knows to read with expression, better yet. We actually gave Rodrigo 2 partners for the second session because he had those kids eating out of his hand, and they were having such a good time. Other kids were looking over there. They wanted to be part of that group. And at the end of the program, Rodrigo told me, he said, you know what? I really had fun, and I can read. I just have trouble with some of the words. And for me, that's all about what our school-age program is about. We really want to bridge that gap for those kids who, for whatever reason, are struggling, sometimes with their skills, sometimes with motivation. Sometimes it's just they haven't seen that reading can be that fun, delightful activity that most of us know it is, because I keep wanting to push that button. So we have other programs that are kind of like Reading Ambassadors in that they bridge that gap. Homework Help is a very popular program. Every day after school, well, not Fridays, because we don't have the program Fridays. You're not supposed to do your homework on Friday. I think everyone knows that. But our downstairs library fills with people. We actually had to buy 2 new tables when we opened the children's library because there were not enough tables for all these families that come in. Many of them are Spanish speakers, but not all of them are. Some of you may know, I know that there's sometimes a homework battle that happens after school, and you just need a break. So we train all kinds of people in Santa Barbara. We have some UCSB education students that come in. We have teens from the local high schools that are earning their community service hours that are in good academic standing. And we also have retired professionals, because we have a wealth of those in our community who really want to give something back. You can see my friends up there in the corner. Now, this young woman may become the president someday. I would not be surprised. Her executive skills are excellent. She actually can complete her homework with no problem whatsoever, but she likes the social interaction and the positive reinforcement. And Mom's a Spanish speaker and doesn't know when to give that. And so it's been a really great community bridge. One of the other things that's happened in that program is when we have the UCSB students in, sometimes they happen to be first-generation college students who speak the same language as that family, as many of our Homework Help staff do. And the kids start to see themselves, and the parents start to ask questions about college. We didn't really anticipate that, but we love it, and we will continue encouraging the education professor at UCSB to give credit for that volunteer commitment. We also have at least 100 kids pass through, usually it's more like 200 or 300, pass through our library every month. We show off the library. The biggest problem with that is that they get really upset when it's time to leave, because we haven't given them time to check out books. We haven't given them time to play in the library. And we say, no, we only have 25 minutes. You have to go to the Museum of Art now. Poor Museum of Art. But we do see many of them come back at the end of the day with their family or the next day. And I said, oh gosh, I recognize you. Weren't you from Washington School the other day? And yeah, so. And then, as my colleague Holly talked about, we have these, we're really focusing on making some big family programs so that everyone in the family can come to the library. We'll often have over 100 people at the programs, which is great. If we have less, maybe 50 or 80, then we can have a more focused, in-depth educational experience. but that is definitely a programmatic goal of ours. And I think I'm going to turn it over to my friend Cassidy Charles, the digital librarian, because she's going to talk about how much STEM and STEAM we put in those family programs.
Good afternoon, Mayor Murillo, President Reed, board members, and council members. My name is Cassidy Charles, and I'm the Digital Services Librarian at the Santa Barbara Public Library. That means that I assist with the curriculum development and the facilitation of our interdisciplinary STEAM activities at the library: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And in that picture, I'm doing probably one of my favorite things. I'm at the Adams Elementary School Science Night, talking to parents and students about what technology offerings we have at the library, as well as demoing one of our 3D printers. And I just love attending those events because I get to show off the technology that we have at the library, but I also get to talk to parents about what that technology is, and they get to learn something, and they also get to model to their children what the experience of lifelong curiosity and learning looks like. And that's really valuable because at the library we're about lifelong learning and exploration. And I can see that I have a story of when in late January we had a tour de tech, all-day activities of technology and science all throughout the library. And the signature event of the day was this cardboard maze we had set up. And children and participants, friendly adults, got to operate a robot. They had to code it through the maze. They had to tell it when to turn, make the left, make the right, all of the steps. And we had one student who was kind of on the sidelines observing, couldn't decide to participate, but with some gentle encouragement from her parents as well as staff members, she eventually opted in, and she took the iPad and started dropping in the code for the program. She was assessing when to make the turns, and she was doing everything she needed to do. And as she completed her set of instructions, and we got to press play on the robot and run it through the maze, it zoomed right through. And she ended up being the first person to complete the maze that day. And she was so happy and she was so excited. And afterwards, as we were talking to her, how would you redesign the maze? What did you think of the robot? What would you do? And what do you think of coding? And she looked at us and she made a face and she was like, oh, that was coding? And you could see that a switch had flipped in her, and that she went from being this reluctant observer to someone who felt confident and empowered that they could use technology and that they could bring something that was on a screen into reality. And that was really exciting, and that's what we want to do with our children as well as our adults, but our children who can see that you can bring something to life from a computer. A computer isn't a magic box that does everything for us, but it's something that they can control, and they can design something and bring that into reality. And we're doing that every day, seemingly every day of the week at the library with the different activities that we have going on. I'll highlight that we're able to do a lot of our activities from our wonderful staff who are trained up, but in the last year we received we were recognized for our interest in incorporating hands-on and inclusive STEAM programming at the library from the American Library Association and Google with the Libraries Ready to Code program. So that's allowed us to bring in more technology, make that technology accessible with laptops and different kits. We're looking forward to bringing that equipment over to Eastside and incorporating the whole community in that programming as well. We're also looking forward to a summer camp over our summer reading program this year, where children are going to get to use computer science and think about their community and what is important to them and how computer science can solve their ideas and bring things to life in that regard. So that's very exciting to us. We also received the Innovation Station grant from the California State Library, and that's allowing us to use our Van on the Go to bring technology into parts of the community that we don't have a library branch, and also just they want more experience with technology and more coding activities. So those two initiatives are very exciting, and that Google grant was very competitive. We were one of 26 libraries across the country to receive it from a pool of 400 applicants. So they can see that we are committed to what we're trying to do with technology in our youth. And they see it every week in our regular technology programming, where in the month of April, students can attend Maker Monday and learn about hummingbird robotics with those kits and Taylor. They can explore circuitry with our SNAP circuits at Tech Tuesday. Every Wednesday, they're working on a different program in the coding lab. This week, they're doing this program. They're having a mini competition that's we're calling a Scratch Off. So they're using the MIT Labs Scratch program to design different stories and programs. So that's really exciting. And they've been promised pizza, but we'll see. We'll see what they produce. And every month as well, on the last Saturday of the month, they can attend, families and children can attend Curiosity Club. And this month we're highlighting space exploration. And they're going to be looking at Pluto, but they're also going to be looking at satellites and what else is above us. So that's just really exciting. And my colleagues have mentioned our outreach, our STEAM school outreach, and we're really interested in inserting STEAM into wherever we can. And Holly does an excellent job of that with our early literacy program. So, and there's just some quick examples across the board of what we're doing and getting technology into the hands of students. So now I thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it over.
Hello again, Mayor Murillo and President Reed and council members and board members. We have many more details of the offerings that we have for teens in our agenda report. Happy to entertain any questions about it. We also brought a schedule of many of our programs to give to you so you get kind of a snapshot of what we do in any given month. You know, here's just kind of a small sampling, and as you saw in some of the pictures that Cassidy highlighted, we have many teens who attend our STEAM and STEM. They're truly geared for more tween and teenage, but we do incorporate STEAM concepts into early literacy and school age as well. So here, you know, but a small cross-section of some of the programs that we are adding and really focusing on. And something worth mentioning, worth highlighting beyond what's in the agenda report is our Teen Advisory Board. We have a core of anywhere from 7 to 15 teens who attend this board every month to give us advice. We hear directly from them as to what kind of relevant and engaging programming that they would like us to add. And we also are active at including career and college readiness resources, college entry essay contests, workforce development, and we add student workers for the city's student intern program as well. Summer enrichment. So Summer Reading 2018 is nearly upon us. It's something that we actually start planning for in January. It's almost kind of like a city budget cycle planning process. So you start in January, you end in June, and then you start all over again. And it's something that we as the board members know that the whole summer slide is an academic, something that it's a really well-known topic, academic topic, that once instructional classroom time ends, students' learning outcomes decrease and diminish. And so summer reading programs have been kind of a hallmark of libraries for a very long time now, and we have a robust assortment of programs to help engage students and increase their educational outcomes. We also actually have a summer lunch at the library program for students who typically rely on meals at schools, and oftentimes students are some of the only meals that they get in any given day. So we actually bring in the food pantry to help augment what we're able to provide lunches to students, no questions asked. In lifelong learning and literacy, we are a firm believer of lifelong learning in libraries, that learning, it doesn't stop at whatever age you are. And so we have a very active, one of the most active adult literacy programs in the state of California. And we have over 200 volunteers, over 60 tutor-learner pairs. And these are anywhere from people who maybe fell through the educational cracks, oftentimes to undiagnosed learning disabilities, but also people who are just learning Spanish or learning English and kind of practicing their English literacy skills, and we're helping them through that process. We actually have a workforce development program called SBPL Works that has a lot of kind of overlap with our adult literacy program. Oftentimes, you are increasing literacy, and then we're going to one-on-one tutoring to help with resumes and job applications, and we have that courtesy of grant funding and courtesy of our excellent staff members. We also have, additional things such as a computer coaching for seniors and people who need additional help in learning how to access digital resources. And, if there's one thing I really wanted to impart, and one takeaway from this presentation is that librarians in general are just dynamic at soliciting partnerships in the community. It's something that we've always been able to leverage our space and our resources and engage the partners in the community to really create amazing things. This is actually a cross-section of the past 3 months of partnerships at the libraries, and I couldn't even fit all the logos into this screen of all the partners that we're engaging. One that's of particular significance to myself is, as a parent of a child on the autism spectrum, is our partnership with the UCSB Kogel Autism Center. Some things that I had to learn the hard way when my child was entering the educational process, such as IEPs, navigating that whole process. We are actually having classes on that for parents and caregivers to learn to be able to better navigate that process. And the future. So we are really happy to have this opportunity today to really present and have our content experts and really engaged staff members talk about what the library can do. So if it's another thing I wanted to impart to you during this process is that the library, we would like the school board to think of the library as not only your educational advocates in the community, but we are a willing and ready partner for you in any additional initiative. We're there to support your curriculum and your educational outcomes, and we are happy we think that we can create excellent community impact by collective action. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for such a comprehensive explanation of all the programs that you provide. And I just want to say that it sounds like you don't want to ever leave the library. There's something for everyone at all times.
Absolutely.
So moving forward, do we have any questions or comments?
May I ask a question?
Yes, Mayor Murillo.
Thank you. So can you describe what is sensory story time and what you mean by manipulatives? And am I the only one who doesn't know what that means?
Sure. Come on up, Holly.
Thank you.
Hello. So manipulatives, for one, it means while they're sitting there, they have something to hold on to and play with, so that when they're having a hard time sitting still, they don't have to rock back and forth or get up or leave the classroom. Well, story time. We instead give them a fidget toy or something that is like a spinner or something they can stretch. We have a lot of different things that they can choose from, actually. Yeah.
And in terms of adapting story times to sensory, children who are on the autism spectrum are often overwhelmed by sensory inputs. So whether that's noise, sound, light, and this is something that kind of keeping the crowd lower at these sensory story times, turning the lights down a little bit, having softer music, softer tones of voices, and having the manipulatives to help with kind of the fidgety sensory-seeking behaviors. It's something that helps them to focus on what we're trying to impart to them in these story times.
How wonderful that we offer that. Thank you.
Councilmember Snedden.
This is just more as a consumer of the library, affirmation. When I first moved to Santa Barbara in high school and I didn't have any friends, and the library was my best friend, went to the library every day after school until 7 and sat on the roof there when it was used to be open. And then as getting older, I tutored for years at the library, which is just a fantastic environment, but it wasn't the happening place that it is now. And raising my kids here, I mean, we've done the story times, the puppet times. This summer, it's Where We Lived, the summer reading program, the maker spaces, and just not just for our children, but also adult literacy and the Scrabble nights and different events. But in the recent disasters, after the debris flows, the talks that you hosted with having geologists come and speak and different speakers, it was really the first place I feel like we could come together as a larger community, and there was so much socializing and coming back together there that I really appreciated that phase of life also. So it's I just think all throughout all the ages, I just so appreciative of our library and all that you're doing to make it modern and still relevant, and actually more relevant than ever. So just thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I think Mr. Paredes Ulloa.
I want to echo Councilmember Sniden's comments. It has changed over the years, and it's really exciting to see everything that's being done. I had the good opportunity to, as a member of the grant making committee for Fun for Santa Barbara, I actually did a tour about a year and a half ago, I think, and I was very impressed by what was going on then, and I'm even more impressed by what's going on now. I did have a few questions. So for the younger school-aged students, are any parts of the library set up in deciles so that they could take whatever evaluation they have from school and take it into the library and pick out books that would be more at their level?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Oh, you want to? I got one shake and one yes. We do have a. Well, yeah, you guys can maybe just come up a little closer.
We don't organize by Lexile. I think most of the studies show that if you're not professionally trained to use the Lexile system, as most parents are not, and many, library staff could be, but we're not going to be able to train our parents, it can be. It can have negative effects. We do have a coding system by color, so that we have a reader section for kids who are practicing reading that's usually sometimes pre-K, but more K through second. And then we have in-between chapter books, and that has a different color, so that if you're transitioning to chapter books, you need something that's still short with a few illustrations. The vocabulary, tends to be more second, third level. But we don't like to say what level, because the truth is sometimes the sixth graders still need in-betweens. Or sometimes the first graders are looking for the chapter books. So we really, part of our goal is to make sure that everyone is reading to their interest and not feeling any kind of stigma at all about, if the sixth grader wants the Cat in the Hat book, then that is fine with us. We actually train our summer reading volunteers to not judge when they see that, because we don't know what's going on for that sixth grader. I mean, that might be the first book they've ever completed, and that's an achievement. We don't want to look down our noses at that if they've been in special ed classes for their whole academic career. So we have a lot less academic information about each child than our peers at the
Good point. Next questions I have are regarding kind of STEAM outreach. I was just wondering if there's any concerted efforts in recruiting certain populations. I know there's a definite need for females and people of color and females of color in the STEM fields, or getting them interested in STEM field, and I'm just wondering if that's in any part of your recruitment strategies, or is it just open?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Murillo. Thank you, President. Thank you, board member. It is something that we've considered as we develop our program, and at this time we're really emphasizing an open lab and everyone's welcome in it, and it's something that we emphasize with our facilitators to be inclusive and to welcome everyone in, and to think about, their actions, presenting a welcoming persona with that regard. And I'm very happy that with the attendance for our coding lab, we're seeing a 50-50 in terms of female to male attendance in that program. And I'm looking forward to, as we expand into the East Side branch with our coding activities, bringing in a Spanish-speaking population as well. And in participating with the Google Ready to Code grant, I've been learning from other libraries across the country how they recruit and how we can apply those strategies at the library. So I'm really looking forward to how we can address that kind of divide that comes up with STEAM and technology.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And one last question about partnerships along the STEM STEAM lines. Are there any partnerships with UCS Bean's engineering programs, SBCCs, or Four Ingenieros, which work locally?
Ooh, I am familiar with the Four Ingenieros. We are looking into those areas of partnership. We've attended We've attended programs at UCSB, a science fair that we attended last year. We brought out our technology there, and we're able to speak to students there. And we are looking forward to how we can bring in community partners, especially for our community workshops over the summer, where they're looking at their community and looking forward to what we can do. We're actually, a part of another activity we're doing over the summer is a hackathon, and we're going to be working with Appfolio, the company in town. So we're looking forward to utilizing our valuable community resources in that regard, and how they can speak to, this can be a career for you. This can be something of interest for you. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Capps.
Thank you, and thank you for this thorough presentation. I feel lucky to hear all of the programs. I knew about some of them, but not at all about the majority of them, and I'm especially happy about the fact that you serve lunch during the summer. That's really important. I have a kind of a practical question so that I can be an even better ambassador for the library out in the community. I'm a working mom, and we juggle how to take care of our kids after school and in the summer. And are any of the programs ones that are drop off? I'm not expecting an affirmative that this is sort of a daycare situation, but I'm just curious, as I'm talking with fellow parents, what sort of services do you provide in that regard, or are they all with a caretaker present?
Okay.
Thanks.
Maria, council member. And board member, that's something that public libraries have experimented with throughout many years. It's not something that we currently offer. We generally expect children to be attended, with the exception of teens. Teens generally above the age of 13 or 14, though we still prefer caregivers to be present at all times. It's generally, from kind of an administrative standpoint, it's a bit of a liability issue in terms of, so it's something that we've certainly experimented with in certain limited circumstances, particularly if it's focused to a particular fixed time program. That's been done in other libraries, but currently that's not something that we offer at the Santa Barbara Public Library. Okay.
All right, of course, our in-house librarian, Ms. Parker.
All right. How did you know I was going to raise my hand? So I wanted to say thank you because, first of all, so many congratulations on the Hope Award. It's been dramatic to see. I mean, the library has always been a wonderful community resource, but in terms of seeing what's been going on in terms of children and families, and seeing the way it's coordinated over the past few years, and part of that may be your social media presence has been getting much, much better. Is that you, Cassidy? Thank you, because many things, like, the fact that you were going to City College when Montecito Union was going there. I mean, I learned about that on my Instagram account, and it was really exciting to see. So congratulations, and thank you for the work that you do. I've seen you as a school board member at our back to school nights, getting families into programs that way, and professionally, you've come out to my boarding high school to welcome new teens into the community and get them their first library cards. So you guys go above and beyond. Here in this moment, though, I'm really concerned about your partnership with the school district. And we now have an elementary librarian, we have our individual secondary librarians, but I've never felt like there's really the structure for our relationship to go further and to be more coordinated, because sometimes you're doing fantastic things. You're doing, the fact that you're talking to families about IEPs and the dyslexia work that you've done, I just don't feel like we have been able to be as coordinated with you as we could have been. And so it's a question for you. I mean, do you feel like you have the point person that you need? Is that something that we could do for you to make sure that you have the connections that you need? So when you're thinking about great summer programming, you have somebody to talk to here about that. So, question for you.
Absolutely. So I have the benefit of being able to say that. I've only been here for 7 months. I don't have the benefit of kind of the institutional memory, but absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why that we are so happy to be here right now, to make those connections, to hear areas in need of better coordination and better focus. I would love to speak to you more. We have our youth services team member, our youth services supervisor, who was unfortunately unable to be here today, but that's information that she would absolutely love to have, and we would absolutely love to coordinate more with the school district.
Great. Well, we'll see what our staff can do about that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Ms. Sims-Moton.
Yes. The Thank you. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. And I can just say my son actually went through the summer education. He continues to ask about his pizza and his chocolate R that he got. So he worked really hard to do that. So it's stayed in his memory in terms of those pieces. And my day job is the executive director for First Five. And so the missions are parallel with regards to Talk, Read, Sing. And I'm just wondering how we're connected with you with regards to that, because it is a First Five statewide campaign from Talk, Read, Sing. I'd like to be able to talk about that a little bit more, as well as family child care. I really appreciate the outreach to parents and providers. So is there a connection, or is there outreach specifically for family child care providers, because they're in the home and they're providing that care, so they don't often get out to the library? So
I'm going to turn this over to my content experts here in terms of.
It sounds like there are multiple questions.
So First Five question. It's.
Let me speak to that.
Okay, please do.
So I know there was, at one point, you had a pledge campaign?
Yes.
And so we did participate in that at all our story times, and we were giving out your book and having the families sign the pledge. It was really lovely because it's a bilingual book. So I do know about that. I believe that my supervisor, the youth services supervisor that Vanessa mentioned, is in contact with someone at First Five.
Okay.
But unfortunately, she's not here to speak to that.
And that's good. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we were here could be a partner with regards to that, because our missions are parallel with regarding to the Talk, Read, Sing, and educating those pieces, because that's one of the things we focus on, early brain development. We know that talking, reading, singing certainly does that. So just to extend that partnership as well. And then, of course, just what outreach do you do to family child care providers?
So currently, we are doing outreach to preschools. Some of them are smaller preschools. Like today, I just went to Storyteller Preschool. And we really do focus a lot on Talk, Read, Sing. We totally agree that the early years are the critical years. And in order to reach that, then we need to be doing all of those things. So as far as at-home daycares, that is absolutely a goal for us. We know that that's a community in need. And so we are absolutely in the process of reaching out to more at-home daycare providers and family care providers.
Okay, and I just want to extend that we can also be a partnership in helping making that connection, so I can give you my card later just so that you can contact our office.
Yeah.
Councilmember Friedman?
Well, great. I love the library. As many of you know, I started my service in the city back in 2004 on the City Library Advisory Board for 10 years, and then served on the Library Foundation Board. So it's remarkable to see where the library has come in the last decade plus. A couple things. These were great stories that you told about the students and the Reading Ambassador Program, and you mentioned a future president of the United States. So I thought I'd give a quote from President Truman from his autobiography about the importance of reading, and it's not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And it's a terrific quote, and it kind of gets into where the library is taking us from the past into the future. It's that gap. The other thing I want to recognize first is to thank all of the staff for the work that you do. It's the library is a complex organization now. You're dealing with technology, books, you're dealing with day-to-day administration, social media, coordination out there, so you're doing a fantastic job. And next, I'd like to also recognize the importance of the children's library that we now have. It's been a game changer for us, as we can see, because many of the programs that you're able to run and the outreach that you're able to do would not be possible without the children's library. So I want to particularly acknowledge the Public Library Foundation for their work, and the city of Santa Barbara, in particular, my three colleagues, Councilmember Hart, Rouse, and Mayor Murillo, who were on the council previously when the decision came to invest significantly in that project to make it a reality. And it just shows that investment in the library is well worth every dollar we spend in capital investment in the library. And to follow up on Councilmember Snedden's remarks about the Thomas Fire, also during the fire, it was really a lifeline for families, because when the schools closed down, we had kids, and I'm a parent, she's a parent, and the kids were stuck indoors for many days. And when you have kids indoors and you can't take them outside, it can become a nightmare for parents. And so the library was one of the few places, free places, that the community could go to have activities and enrichment for their kids during that time, where there was clean air. So it was really a great great thing. And then I also want to mention the maker space. I take my kids there, and this is an interesting story of our library. So I'm going to be a little bit long, but this is my one chance to really kind of tout our libraries. They're so important. My kids and I were there, and they were doing the 3D printing, and the staff showed a really interesting piece that nobody knew what it was, and it turns out that Ventura, I got to remember this, it's not exactly correct, but it's close enough. So Ventura Hospital had an artificial joint, and they needed a specialty pin that nobody had designed yet, or something like that. And so they called the library. If there's any of you here can clarify, but I think I got it close enough. But they called the library, and so the library actually went and designed this little pin, and they printed it out at our library and mailed it to the hospital in Ventura. And it's now somebody's actually using the pin that was designed at our library as part of our artificial joint. And they explain this to the kids, and it gets the kids really excited. So that was a great story. And then again, the adult literacy that we do, let's not forget that a lot of individuals, they can't get to economic self-sufficiency because they can't read, and so it enables them to get that confidence and then be able to go out and participate in the workplace. And that's something, that a service that we provide at the library as well for adults. And then the other aspect I want to mention is the Eastside Library. Is when I was a mentor through the Fighting Back program, I mentored a few different youth on the East Side, and we'd come to the East Side Library. And it's important for the school board to know that once the kids get out of school, the East Side Library, it's the happening place. And it's great because when they leave the school, a lot of your students are going to the East Side Library and participating in services. So it bridges that gap when the parents aren't necessarily home, and the kids can get into other things, and they're going to the library instead. So with that, there's more I could say, but I could go all day. But just thank you all for everything that you're doing, and thank you to everybody in the community who invested in our library.
Thank you.
All right. I'm just going to say the mental health piece is really powerful, that you have now offering support in that area. And I think it would be great to have that connected with what we're doing here with the district, and moving forward with our work in that area, because I think if we can bridge that gap there across comprehensive approach to how we can support each other in that area. And one final thing, just to move, I just wish I had the homework battle. I'm just my son, when, if that would have been so great to have. So I think that would be probably one of your most filled areas at the library.
Absolutely.
So thank you very, very much for all of your work and the wonderful support that you give to our families and community.
Okay, thank you.
So moving forward, just to our additional matters for placement on a future agenda. So I'm just going to look to council members and board members if you have any potential future agenda items. Mayor Murillo.
Thank you. I was so impressed by our youth council members who came today. How about a presentation from the youth council? They didn't talk completely about what they're doing. They're trying to get a parent from a parent of a survivor of the Parkland, Florida shooting to come out and talk at their leadership conference on April 26th or 28th, whatever that date was. So they're really active. They're also doing a Project Alma, where they help undocumented students, and they got money from the Fund for Santa Barbara. That's why I'm looking over at you. So if our youth council is made up of Santa Barbara High, Dos Pueblos High, San Marcos High, the alternative schools, and a junior high school representative. So if this is a good time, 4 o'clock after school, have them come and make a presentation. And then I will work with B.B. Longstreet, who came and asked for a closer connection of the Neighborhood Advisory Council and the school board. They do care about that. That's what they hear in their meetings. They hear from parents and families who want a better connection. So I'll work with B.B. and we'll come up with a way for us to talk about a better connection in that respect. We can do formal internships. If students need to get community service hours, we have plenty of meetings that they can come to and take notes and write a report. So I'm available for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Snedden.
I think it would be really great to work in partnership to solarize the schools. I mean, to really make that happen, and working with the city and the school districts to get that going. And I think probably Peabody Charter School is a good place to start. It can move quickly and has open rooftops, but I think getting that moving in the next year would be really fantastic.
Thank you. Ms. Capps.
Well, Councilwoman Sneddon took my first suggestion, which is great, so I echo that. My second is school safety. If we heard from our police chief last year when we met, I would love an update, and I know that we are, the district is putting a lot of emphasis on a school safety task force, and by that point next year, we'll be ready to share findings and just collaborate. I know our officers are on campus every day, and it would be good to just revisit where we are with school safety. Thanks.
Yes, Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you, President Reed. I'm going to third the solar panel idea and kind of ad-libbing off of what Michael Chiacco said. I think it would be great to look at a JPA for local government agencies of any sort, not just school districts, but if the city can work with the school district, with the city college, with any other government agencies that would like to, I think that would be a great way to pool our resources. So that's something that I would throw out there. In general, I think anything we can put on our agenda that talks about the needs of the respective agencies, that allows the other organization to figure out where they can pitch in. It's great to hear what's being accomplished and what's been accomplished, but this would be more forward-looking. So one idea is the superintendent mentioned workforce housing. So I'd love to hear anonymized data on your workforce. Are they living in the city of Santa Barbara? Are they living in the county, out of town? Because one of the goals with our general plan was to provide workforce housing, and it hasn't really worked out. So I'd like to know if that has an impact on the school district as a fairly large-sized employer.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Mayor Murillo, and council members and board members.
Can I make just
yes, you may.
Just quick announcement, not for future agenda. But tonight is Noche de Ciencias at Casa de la Raza, if anyone's interested, for 5:30, 7:30. They'll be showing off a lot of different exhibitions, experiments, et cetera, just kind of like we just did recently at Santa Barbara City College. So if you have time after this meeting and you feel so inclined, join me, because that's where I'm heading after this.
All right, well, actually, Ms. Sims-Moten and I are going to the San Marcos High School volleyball game, so we've got to get out of here. So anyway, thank you all, and we will now adjourn.